Hari Om. Hari Om. Hari Om. Hello, my friends. I should have reminded last time that because of the time change, it may be a different hour for people in Europe and other places too. I just keep going at the same Indian hour, and then the different time changes have to adjust. I would like to talk about faith, confidence. Often we are asked to have faith, but how can we have faith in something that we don't know? But actually, if we look even on the practical level, we have to have faith a lot of the time in things that we don't know. If we don't have faith in some faith in the technique, then we cannot go into an airplane. When we go in an airplane, we go with the faith that the plane will safely settle us where we want to go. When you board a train, anything, we have to have enough faith to go for it, to try. Now, with the spiritual journey, it is a bit more tricky. Often teachers ask for faith, but then people wonder, is that teacher worthy to have faith into or not? And one can never be 100% sure. We have to learn to listen to our heart. And if we get a pointer in a certain direction, or if we meet a teacher, and there is that basic sense of, yes, this feels right, then we can have faith at least to do the next step. And with that next step, the faith comes for the next step. And even if, let's say, with a teacher, we have faith, and then after some time, we may have a doubt that the teacher is really as clear and as pure as we have thought, then having had faith to get what we could from that situation, from that teacher, was necessary, was helpful. Without faith, it's very difficult. But in all that, what is mainly needed is that we develop faith in ourselves. Confidence. Somebody once, when I said something about self-confidence, thought, but this is ego. No, this is not ego. Self-confidence, faith in oneself means that we stop doubting that potential that is always there. Everybody has such a potential, and we hardly use it. We have been hypnotized of being a very weak, separate little being. And as we grow up, we think like this, we act like this, we feel like this. We are taught to think and act and feel like this. And then we start to do so, and then that gets so totally settled. If one never questions it, one goes through the whole life long like this. Always feeling very limited, very weak, very incapable. We have to let that go. And how can we let that go? By sincerely trying, by sincerely doing so, by sincerely taking a step with confidence, that we learn to let go of all that is holding on that hypnosis, that is keeping that hypnosis alive, that we learn to let go all that which we thought, that's me, I am like this, that is disturbing, that doesn't let us dive into our own resources. It's always there, such a potential, such a tremendous strength. If we start to develop that faith in ourselves, then we can also have easily faith when we are confronted with a situation where we really can be supported, where we can direct it, where we can be helped to do again something, to make a step, to do a step, to go for it. Faith in the self, faith in God, and faith in the Guru is the same. But even if somebody is with a Guru, we cannot avoid of developing that self-confidence. And it's also the Guru's job to do so, to inspire that. Without that confidence, without that faith, we cannot do anything. Life is extremely limited and painful. Even if we cannot totally feel it, we can accept it as a working theory. There is a tremendous potential in me. And if we are getting inspired by that idea, then we start to do things that we never dared to do so before. Then we start to plunge also in ourselves with much more confidence, with much more energy, with much more enthusiasm. And every time we do so, that self-confidence is increasing because we become more and more aware. Yes, whenever we do so, we are touching something very powerful, something very pure, pristine. And the faith is growing by itself. Without confidence, nothing is possible. If we develop that confidence, everything starts to become possible. We cannot really artificially do it, but we can consciously make an effort to open up to that. And accept it at least as a possibility. And if that acceptance of the possibility that there is so much more strength than what we have imagined, then we are also capable of making the next step. If we are always handicapping ourselves by thinking, anyhow, I cannot do it, I cannot get anywhere, anyhow, that's very nice in the stories, but me, I'm never capable of doing so, then all our strength is getting drained. And especially in this time, it's necessary that we develop that self-confidence. With that self-confidence, then we can face difficult situations because we know deep down there is always that strength there, there is that purity there that cannot be touched by no matter what is happening. If that confidence is there, then one is not worried even if one hears terrible things going on. Because we become more and more aware, this is all just temporary. A temporary manifestations, we go through it, we learn, we grow, we outgrow this place, this level. If that awareness is there, then we can also have that ease to deal with it. Okay, we're playing along for some time. Sometimes it's pleasant, sometimes it's unpleasant. Sometimes it's very favorable and sometimes it's unfavorable. And then even if we hear what is going on, what kind of potential for destruction there is, still we just can go from day to day with faith that no matter what is going to happen, there is always that aspect that is absolutely not affected by any of that. This is just a temporary story we are going through. This is just a dreamlike, temporary manifestation we are going through in order to get experience, to become more self-aware, to become more aware of our tremendous divine potential. If we have that attitude, then we can face anything. Okay, let me stop with that for today. And I'm asking you, my friends, is there anyone who would like to come in and say something? You are welcome to do so. Nobody wants to talk? Okay. It's good to remember this whole damn story is not as real as it appears. That gives the proper relationship with what is happening. This is not exactly the same, but it is very similar to the dream experience. When we sleep and the dream springs up and the whole scenario is constructed and we may play a role in that scenario, and if we are fully asleep and identified with the dream, then we experience the same limits in that scenario. There can be pain in the dream, there can be fear in the dream, there can be laughter in the dream. Then we wake up, oh, it was only a dream, it was not real. during the experience of the dream, it still appeared to be real. It was real as an experience. And so is this one. It's real as an experience. But we are just giving it a reality that it does not really deserve. It's good if we are not aware of that to go on reminding ourselves again and again. This is just a momentary experience. We're just going through this story in order to gather experience, in order to learn, in order to grow, in order to outgrow. If we have that, if we, somebody has the microphone open, can you please close it? It's slightly disturbing. If we can go through our day-to-day experience like this, even if it's not a direct inner experience, but we remind ourselves, hey, come on, this story is not as real as it appears. We are just temporary here. We're just going temporary through this game. Then it's much easier to deal with whatever comes, because deep down we always know eventually the story is over. We're coming back home aware of our potential, aware of our divine nature. The more we remind ourselves to think like this, the more we start to feel like this, the more we act from a perspective that helps us to broaden our perspective, to broaden our horizon. And even if there is the possibility for unfavorable things to happen, it cannot scare us, because we know it's not as real as it appears. We're just going through that story for some time, coming out of it richer for the experience. But no matter what is happening, it cannot affect the essence. You are that. You are that before this life, you are that during this life, you are that after this life. This lifetime is a temporary, momentary experience. And there is always the possibility, no matter what is happening, we can dive into our own resources, come back to our own essence with our attention. Even attempting it is already changing the perspective. Even attempting it makes it already much easier. And right now, this story is going through quite a difficult situation. And so many possibilities are there to worry. But if we are worrying, then we are actually adding, helping that negative stuff can happen. If on the other hand, we remind ourselves, no matter what is happening, there is always that aspect that cannot be hurt, then our own life becomes much easier. And also we are contributing that things can change also on this manifested, on this material level, to something much more positive, much more creative, much more broad and vast and harmonious. I'm asking again, is anyone who would like to come in? You are welcome to do so. Nobody wants to talk. Okay. It's also good just to be here, conscious, consciously conscious, aware that we are creating together a field of strength, a field of beauty, of light. We are contributing, we are all benefiting from it. It's good to create fields for oneself or in a group like this right now, because it's like a dark blanket is covering up the whole experience around the world. And every time one is really connecting with the essence, we are making a hole in that blanket. And if we are coming together like this, connecting with the essence, connecting with the divine beauty, then we are making a nice big hole in that blanket of perception. The more holes we are making, the faster it goes, that it just simply starts to crumble down and disappear. So it's also good just to be here. We are anyhow connected with all there is. But when we come together like this, then we are doing so consciously, and that has its own special potential, has its own special strength.
Hello, Werner.
Hello, Lutz.
Yeah, I want to talk about faith in the method, and especially faith in methods you promote, which are kind of, I would call it the meditative approach that you practice with a certain attitude and get closer to your real self by doing this practice. In my own spiritual path, I was, I think, too impatient to thoroughly do a practice like that. And I initially benefited the most from just being graced by a guru, just kind of getting some adjustment from the energy transmission of that guru to at least kind of give me a glimpse what it's really all about. That was, of course, very inspiring, but yet at the same time, I couldn't follow this path this particular guru was or seemed to show everybody to kind of reach that. So I felt a little bit helpless. Later on, I discovered that there are some kind of preliminary steps I have to take in order to open up to kind of a more truer dimension, or kind of a more deeper dimension of myself, means doing some work on my body, and also doing some work on my feelings and my beliefs. And that at the present time, I do this by focusing on a certain energy, which is kind of connected with a guru or spiritual teacher. And then this energy comes, and it feels like it's coming, it's building up in me, and then things are kind of getting released, getting out. This works especially well if many people do this at the same time. But even then, it's very kind of difficult to allow this energy to really kind of come in and make its job.
Yeah.
And it's kind of frightening, because it's a jump into the unknown in a way, or in a kind of a scary area, and it brings up things which are uncomfortable, which I have held down in my subconscious for long times. But when it has happened, for a moment I feel, oh yeah, this was wonderful. But the moment usually this kind of transformation is happening, it's kind of rather unpleasant and very challenging. So even with this, I would call it sand blower method, kind of this I kind of invite this energy to do this job, because ultimately I know it's doing good, but it's a kind of strong thing. It's very challenging. But even with this, the steps to kind of grow and let go things is very kind of small, steps by steps, months and years and years. So that's for me. But when I think about this kind of direct, I would call it direct methods, which you seem to represent, or kind of have gone through, I wonder whether they are at all in their completeness usable for normal Western people. I tell this now because when I do this, usually what I get, but I'm not doing extensively such kind of things. I get quiet, and I eventually get a nice kind of inner peaceful feeling, and eventually also some little bit something is coming up, but nothing, absolutely nothing compared to experience I had with getting blessings from gurus, or doing this kind of intense energy practice. So how can I dissolve my things with this seemingly super fine attitude, just be in the here and now? I enjoy very much to be with you, and to take in the attitude you have towards life. These are kind of, for me, these are kind of basic truths, which also help me to kind of carry on, and not forget, not get lost in the kind of stream of outer happenings. But I cannot belief that somehow the way you did your thing, that this is for me, that this will work for me.
Of course, that doesn't mean externally your way should in any way be similar like my way. What I'm talking about is an attitude that you can bring in, and like when you do these intensive energy practices, then you have these intensive energy experiences, and that brings up stuff, and then you cannot do these intensive energy practices all the time. And for the whole rest of the time, you can come back to what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I consider this energy practice actually as some kind of pre-cleaning or something that maybe one time I get more subtle and more capable of doing some more subtle thing, but without this kind of pre-cleaning, or I don't know what other image I should give this. I think I'm getting nowhere. I'm just kind of
You're still here, Lutz.
beautifying my stuckness with some little peace meditation or something like I would call it.
Yeah. Anyhow, it's good to be alert that you don't settle down like this. And I always encourage anyone who feels like doing any kind of practice to do so. But while doing so, also be aware that basically this is a help, this is a crutch for the mind. It's not that the practice is now somehow the holy grail that I have to hold on to. It's the practice is a help that makes it easier to do what I'm talking about all the time, to connect with oneself. And so if anyone feels to go for any practice, by all means, it's not at all a contradiction to what I am talking about. One can, what I'm talking about, integrate into any practice that one is doing. And if the need is felt that one is going for strong energy practices, then I guess that's what's on the program. Then by all means, go for the strong energy practices and have your tremendous experiences. And then when that an experience comes, is there and goes, when that experience is over, then don't just completely forget about it, but then you come back again to simply being as good as you can, reminding yourself to be in the present, not simply when you sit down and meditate, but by whatever you're doing, when you're cooking your breakfast, when you're walking around the city, when that it's not a contradiction to any practice, what I'm talking about. You can do your different practice with enthusiasm, with zest, and then still remind yourself to be here, to be now, while doing the practice, but also when you are doing your normal day-to-day life. And I don't think it has much to do with East and West, because you said whether this could be possible for Westerners. It has to do with whether somebody is really yearning sincerely to get out of the comfortable zone that we have created for me as a person, who sincerely wants to be free of all those restrictions. And if that yearning is there, then it's not difficult to practice what I'm talking about. Actually, it's not difficult what I'm talking about. It's easy, but it has to be done. That seems to be the difficulty.
Yeah, I mean, you have done this very extensively, and I think I asked you already before, but the kind of mystery for me is or the only explanation for me how you could have such patience and kind of endurance to do what you did. You must have had some kind of clear momentary vision, insight of the kind of the possible result in order for you to give you the strength to kind of carry on. And I think that maybe we don't have. Or I mean, I'm talking about your very extreme approach. I mean, I think none of us here in the group has this type of dedication, and this is kind of gearing up the whole life just to watch just that. So it is actually is not so important for us, but still, I mean, it's not so important how you did it. We must find some way which works for us in our.
Right. But when I'm talking to people, I'm never trying to push anyone to go and sit and sit and sit and sit and meditate. What I'm trying is to help people to remember to be alert and be in that meditative mood no matter what you are doing. And then there may be big gaps, but if you have basically that intent, then you remember, and then in the midst of it, you connect again. You're talking not about what I'm talking about here now, but you are talking what I externally did. And that is
that's true. That's absolutely true. Yeah.
Right. And that's another story. I'm not trying to sell my story as a model to do something. If somebody would try that who is not naturally pulled to do so, then it would be more destructive than helpful. You cannot force that about. But the spirit, the essence, we can bring in no matter how we are going about it. That we can, and at that time, towards the end, yes, when I was still there, that mood had changed. But before, I was not at all. What I'm telling now, everybody learn to be playful, learn to be easy about it. I was like that. And I try to convey to people that this is not necessary. If somebody feels like that and cannot help it, then maybe we have to go with willpower and try to force things about. Eventually, one has to relax. But I'll try to convey that it is possible to have that playful spirit and still be sincere. That playfulness doesn't mean that we are not sincere. But if we are getting more playful, then we are also not taking myself as a person so serious anymore. And I have to say, when I started out, I was full with that Werner, I want to achieve something. And I couldn't help it. That's how I functioned. And because Amma saw that's how I'm functioning, instead of telling, come, relax, relax, she said, yes, yes, more. But eventually I had to give that up. Then I still kept on sitting, but by that time the sitting was easy. But then the whole mood changed in a playful story. And that's what I'm trying to convey, that we can be sincere, we can connect with that essence, but in a nice, in a lightful, in a joyous way. We don't have to try to force things about. Now, this is not telling anything against your intense energy practices that you are doing. If you are resonating with that, if it pulls you to do that, then by all means do it. Do that and try to remember to do also what I'm talking about. They are not contradictions. You want to say something more, Lutz, to that?
Well, I'm letting it sink in. I mean, one thing I think I confused is that I accused you to promote your way of doing your thing, but actually you are just talking about a certain attitude, the kind of the
Right.
essence you get out of your practice, but you're not kind of promoting your kind of harsh and intense sadhana ways. So
No,
that I
I'm
confused.
pleading not guilty for that accusation.
But in a way, it's also mysterious that, at least for me, that the very first moment you met Amma, you immediately realized this is it.
Yes.
But at the same time, it seems your ego took over and says, I want this, not realizing that actually this I, which wants something, is maybe the biggest hindrance in order to experience the state she's living in.
Right.
So,
That's 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 the madness of the human mind. That's more or less, more intensely, less intensely, but that's one of the big difficulties everybody has to struggle with. That in a way we start to convince ourselves, there could be a way of existing that is okay, that we can be happy, that we feel fulfilled, but at the same time, that me, I'm functioning from, we have to let go and not try to desperately hold on to that and just add that new thing as a new decoration on top of that personality. And even if intellectually it becomes clear that readiness to let go of that is something that for most of us has to mature in one way or another.
yeah, this is very familiar to me. Whenever I had some a deep or often when I had some kind of so-called spiritual experience of not being me and opening up to something, then immediately something kind of wanted to possess that and utilize that in my personal life for my advantage, or at least feeling great. Oh yeah, now you
Right.
got it. Ooh, ah.
Right. And then when we see that, then we can work on that and let that go. And it will sneak in again in a subtler way. But if that sincerity is there, then we also become aware, I'm still doing the same. It's still the same game. The me, I want. It needs a great maturity for somebody to just understand that, because it's not difficult to understand, and then really just to let that aspect go. And everyone has to find their own way how that maturity process is happening. If the basic sincerity is there, it will happen, and your way will go wherever it has to go, in whatever turns it has to take. That call is there for everyone. Everyone is essentially that divine beingness. Everyone is essentially a divine being. And the call is there to come home, not to get stuck in that personal me, self-important story that I'm creating. But the influences are very strong to hold us in that me. Andreas, you're coming in once in a while. Please turn off your microphone. It's slightly disturbing.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you. So, we can understand that, but then the habit is always pulling us again and again into that. But the self is calling all the time. And if that sincerity, if that necessary innocence is there, that we are opening up to that, then even if out of habit we bring in that old way of functioning, me, I want this, I want that, then gradually that will somehow getting a bit worked away. And that doesn't mean one has to sit and sit and sit and sit. That was my way. It's good for everybody to have every day some time when we are not busy but can put our undivided attention simply on that without getting disturbed. But that was just my way that for me it was sitting, sitting, sitting. And Amma very much encouraged that because she saw that was natural for me. But what mattered is that in this way, I was doing what I'm talking here about now all the time. In this way, at least I brought a lot of the time the attention to the present, a lot of the time connecting as good as I could, a lot of the time being confronted with stuff that comes out from the subconscious and learn to let it, to see it and learn to let it go. But you think that this is strange that I had that clarity, this is now the way I want to go, and still holding on to the old thing, but that's how it's happening. Habits, they just don't let go. From one day to another, they have their own power, they have their own momentum. But if we stay with it, then even strong tendencies that stand in the way, they can eventually, with patience and perseverance, be overcome and they disappear.
Thank you.
We'll leave it at that for today. Huh? Hari Om. Hari Om. Is there anybody else who would like to come in? Okay, let me come back to that same subject. That is always the challenge. I mean, the basic principles of spiritual teachings, they are not difficult to understand. Anyhow, anyone with a little bit clarity can relatively easily understand the basic principle. And often I say to people what I'm talking about, to do that, it's not difficult. And somebody objected to me and said, you always say it's not difficult, and then you have struggled for years and years, and now you say it's not difficult. What I'm talking about is not difficult. And the spiritual principles, the basic spiritual principles, the basic spiritual principles of Vedanta, of any spiritual teaching, they are not difficult to understand. The difficulty is that after that, all that stuff that has been going on simply doesn't want to so easily give up, simply wants to keep that monopoly. And then even if one turns to from a so-called worldly life to a totally spiritual life, one is carrying invariably the same mechanisms along, how one is functioning, how one is reacting, how one is thinking and feeling, in spite of the better understanding, in spite of understanding, hey, this is what prevents me from simply being free. When the strong habits are there, then the tendency in the mind is always to focus on another aspect, to find excuses, to justify, in order to simply have a good look and see, okay, I'm doing it again. It's the same old story. It's the same old me, self-importance personality that comes in just with a spiritual coloring, with a spiritual flavor. But that is the thing that one has to give up. That giving up, the process I'm talking about, is not difficult. That's what I mean when I say it's not difficult. But it doesn't necessarily go from one day to another. That is stuff that has been building up for a long time, getting strengthened unconsciously because we function in a certain way. And then, even if we consciously start to work on it, that habit with its own power, its own momentum, just doesn't want to give up. This is what everybody faces. What I ask people to do is not difficult. Find one way or another to remind yourself, and then find your own way that comes most natural, that comes easiest to simply connect. And everybody can do that. Everybody knows that sense of presence. We don't have a clear experience, we don't have a clear vision maybe, but everybody knows that sense of presence. When you say I, immediately the attention is touching something so totally familiar. And if we don't think about it, there is no problem with that. It's simply then we start to think about the I, and there comes in the whole story, and I have done this, and I have done that, and this is me, and along with it the whole red tail of habits that always want to pull the attention again away from that pure sense of presence. To connect with the pure sense of presence is not that difficult, but we may not stay long. A little moment, off it goes again. What seems to be difficult is that we overcome that resistance of the mind to continue doing so. And sometimes we may go through periods where it feels, really steps are happening, things are dropping off, it's getting lighter, something is happening. And sometimes we may go through periods where one feels, it seems I'm going round and round and round in a circle and nothing is happening. So what's the point? Maybe the practice is not powerful enough. I should do something else. This is not because somebody makes a mistake that such a period comes. They just happen. They are part of one's destiny. They are part of how this is unfolding. Subtly, always something is going on. If one continues to remind oneself, if one continues to connect consciously, even if we don't see any result, subtly something is preparing, and then suddenly in those times when we feel something is happening, there it starts to fruition. That also in all the other times, subtly something has still been going on. So all we have to do is patiently go about it. And we don't have to go about it grinding out teeth and desperately trying to break through walls or something, but we can go about it playfully, joyously, but it has to be done. That is the one thing the mind has difficulty with, but we can still do it. Okay, I'll stop talking now and asking my friends, is there anybody else who would like to come? I see two pictures. Who wants to come first?
It's me.
Okay, Andreas, you're out in nature.
Yes, I'm going to the Netherlands. Can you hear me?
Yes?
Okay, good. Could you say that your practice is in a way to let everything be the way it is, with just being present?
If you want to say so, basically I invite anybody to practice what they like to practice. If somebody likes to practice a technique, then practice a technique, but try to do what I'm saying while practicing the technique. Try to do what I'm saying when you are not officially practicing. It's just somehow or other bring the attention back to being consciously conscious, consciously in the present, and learn to relax in it. And then you, most of the time, you let things be the way they are, but sometimes you may also feel the impulse that you want to change certain things. And that is nothing wrong, as long as you are connecting with yourself.
Okay. And what's like the value of purification? Because last week I realized that I might be intolerant to histamine. I don't know if that's in German it's histamine, if that's the right English word, and started to change my diet. And I feel much more energy now.
Oh, yeah.
And this helps focusing and being present during my meditation and even during the rest of my daily life, because otherwise I was always a little bit spaced out in a way, because I wasn't really able to ground myself. So this is not real purification, but it relates to the energy level, right? Maybe
right.
that's, yeah.
Right, it relates to your body's responses to certain things. And when you become aware of that, then you can adjust that, you make it, if possible, easier. That is good to do so. The purification, the tradition always talks about is basically what I'm all the time talking about it. What I'm talking about is not that we have to achieve something, that basically everything is there, but it's prevented from being clear because we are carrying all that bag of unnecessary stuff. So it's not the path of attaining something, but the path of getting rid of all that is not necessary. And that is the purification.
So it basically means letting go of everything.
Letting go of everything that stands in the way.
Because I cannot let go of my true self, so everything I can let go of is something that is created by me, right?
Right.
Okay, these are my questions for today.
Okay, then have a good walk.
Yeah, I'll go back to driving now. Sorry for the problems, but it was very difficult with the smartphone, because it makes crazy. I had a very nice volume, and then I just turned it 90 degrees and the volume was gone.
I see.
Okay. Okay. Goodbye.
Hariom. Hariom.
Hariom.
Okay, Dial, you wanted to come in. You are welcome to do so now.
Hello, Werner.
Hello,
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I want to ask you about Vipassana.
Yes.
In Buddhism, they call Vipassana, it's see the reality. Usually, I see not real things. For example, my body, I think it's something real, but it's made from very small particles from atoms. They are vibrating and a lot of energy. And this is reality by Vipassana, and we have to make sharper our perceptions to see the reality of subatomical parts. So we have to see the energy vibrations. I don't know. So what do you think about this way? Because it seems to take really, it needs a really different perceptions than usual perceptions.
I think that is certainly, like many other things, a way to connect. But one has to be careful then not to get too much obsessed by trying to seeing things that usually could not see. It may happen on the way that you are seeing things differently, that you start to see energy, that you start to see many things. But it's not that you have to make your vision subtler and subtler and subtler, and then finally you see reality. You are that reality. So it's not something to be seen. Yeah. Whether you see things in a gross way or in a subtle way, it's still what we are looking for is that which makes the experience possible. Whether you're standing at the side of a road and you see a truck rushing by, or whether you have a subtle vision of energy or a divine vision, seeing gods and goddesses, there is certainly a different degree of vibration. That those spiritual experiences, they are much subtler. But at the same time, what we are looking for is whether you are experiencing in a gross way or in a subtle way, that which makes the experience possible, that which is first. Now, trying to see things subtler and subtler and subtler as you, and perceive, not only see, perceive subtler and subtler as you have described, is a way of bringing the attention to the present. That is perfectly fine. Simply, it's good to also understand it's not the goal that you have become a total adept in seeing and perceiving subtler and subtler, but what you are looking for is that home, that which is first, that sense of presence that is prior to any gross or subtle vision, that which makes the experience possible. If that attitude is brought along, then Vipassana can be very, very helpful as a practice.
Yes, but Buddha never talk about see myself as, how to say, they given this way subtle vision to go through this subtle vision to reality, that which makes reality, that it makes things possible through this subtle vision. Because if I stuck in gross vision, normal vision, I'm not able to see what makes things possible. Is that correct way, or you think it's possible directly see that which make the things possible?
That's the thing. It's not something to be perceived in a way. It's that perception. It's that which makes the perception possible. Now, the Buddha didn't, first of all, we don't really know what the Buddha said and what he didn't say, because it was written down much later and in other languages than what he talked. What comes true to me from the Buddha is that once he was totally clear about himself, about reality, about what is, then he was struggling, how could I possibly convey this to people? And then he created his teaching, which is based on those 4 basic noble truths. And there he's not giving definition. He simply, first he says, okay, if you have a good look, you see life is suffering. And why is it, why are you suffering? You're suffering because of that greed of me, one things. But then it need not be like this. And then the 4th is the path, and he's not really saying so much, do it like this or do it like this. He just has his 8 points and says, do that right. the right thing, this, the right that, the right that. And after that, it becomes a matter of defining things. And after Buddha, like after all the teachers, people started to define things in their own way and say it's like this, and that's what Buddha meant. It happens here with Ramana, that the different disciples, the moment Ramana was not there, there was a lot of yang discussion. No, Bhagavan meant like this, Bhagavan meant like that. And what Bhagavan meant was not hair splitting about these kind of details that people were discussing and fighting about, but somehow try to get the people something to bring the attention back to the essence. And when you say by seeing subtler you are getting closer, then this is one way to go about it, because it helps you to bring the attention to that timelessness of the now and learn to let go what stands in the way. It's a matter of interpreting things that this kind of differences happen. But basically, we are talking about the same thing.
Okay, Werner, okay. I have to think and practice it. Yes, I try this approach, but it seems it's not simple. So make perceptions so subtle that you can see subatomical parts and feel it directly. It's really special vision. So that's what I'm describing.
It's a concentration exercise. It focuses you and it makes you stronger. At the same time, one can also then get a bit lost in that, to desperately want to try to develop those abilities and missing the point what we are actually wanting. You just have to become natural. So then let's not say the self. The Buddha did not use the word self. Then just become natural, what you are. Somehow that's what the teaching tries to tell us. Come back home naturally.
But then,
yeah,
when you say become natural, by what reason we become to see the self or that which makes things possible? By what is the reason that it happened?
this is our natural state. We have become unnatural. We have somehow, when getting born in this world, there happens a great forgetting about what is natural. And then the consciousness is being formed in the world when we grow up, and everybody tells us how we have to think, how we have to see, and it's totally unnatural how we perceive. And when I say become natural, then that means then the attention can sink back in that which naturally is, which it's not because of some particular reason that you are then getting that, because you are already that. And if we remove all that which is unnatural, which we have learned on top, then you are in your natural state. And there things are the way they are. perceived the way they are.
Okay, Werner, it looks very simple. I hope it will works.
Yes.
Hari Om.
Hari Om. Hari Om. Hari Om. Is there anybody else? I see Anita, you like to come in?
Yes.
Hello, Anita.
Hello. I wanted you to ask, or wanted you to talk about this, I don't know if you can call it, sorry, new age thing or so, that we are kind of moving from 3D consciousness to 5D consciousness, and that in the atmosphere and every, in the galaxies, and I don't know what all these astrological things are saying, but somehow it's like as if there's a lot of shift happening in the energy, which is also moving through us, and this is something that I can actually definitely feel. But what does it mean about this 5D? Have you heard of that? And can you talk about that? I mean, as I heard what they say, it's like that people are waking up, is a mass consciousness waking up because of the more light that's coming in, and that we are not so attached to the mind anymore. Also, some people might still, yeah.
Yes, right. I think such a thing is going on. So far, it's not very visible, but people are not mass waking up, but rather mass going to sleep. But there is an increase of a very good energy. I don't know whether it's shifting from 3 dimensions to 5 dimensions, maybe, but we are in a transition period. That seems very clear, but so far it's a tremendous struggle, and it's like that energy that wants to hold that process back, and that energy who wants to pull in that direction, they are struggling heavily with each other. That energy who wants to pull back is afraid, because it has been in control for a long time and is afraid it has to leave. So it's mobilizing all its possibilities that this cannot happen. Because of that, all these crazy things is going on. Now, you need not worry about 3 dimensions and 5 dimensions. Just be yourself. And even if the whole world shifts, let's say that, even if the whole world shifts into a 5-dimensional state where people are naturally more harmonious, but from that 5th dimension, you still have to take the trouble to bring the attention back to yourself to become really what you are. We want to go way beyond the 5th dimension.
Okay. Okay. But it seems like it's on another plane. I don't know. I mean, as I experience it, sometimes there are like bodily sensations that I'm thinking, I don't know, I'm gonna die now or something really, really strange. And what I figured out is that my mistake was to not want it because I'm getting afraid. So I'm fighting it, and then it gets even worse. So I'm waiting for the next blessing to accept it, because really it's so weird sometimes that I'm just getting afraid, or I don't know what to do, like. And then, but actually last time when it was really, really heavy, I did remember to center, and that made it actually
Yes.
that it calmed. It was the only thing. I mean, I was breathing consciously, but it was too strong. But then when I say, okay, I go to my center, then it got calm. So
and relax.
yes,
Center
yes,
and relax instead of struggling, instead of fighting.
yeah,
Yes,
right.
Exactly. Yes, such things may happen It's energetically an intensive time, and all kinds of funny manifestations may happen. But if you do just that you just center and relax as good as you can, then it's not difficult to weather that out.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Our goal is not the fifth dimension. Our goal is that which is prior to the dimensions, that goes beyond the dimensions.
Yeah, that's what I was curious how it, because for me it seems also like it's not the same. Or
But for the manifestation is in a transition, and it's most likely that finally something much more luminous and harmonious can grow out of that. And then it's another story. And from there, people will live more harmoniously. But still, if you want to come to the essence, then also in that situation, you have to bring the attention back to the essence itself and not get lost in the nice, more harmonious world. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shall we leave it at that?
Sure.
Yes. Okay. Hari Om. Hari Om.
Carry on.
Is there somebody else who would like to say something? Okay. Then we can slowly come to the end of this satsang, but then I would like to say one more thing, just to that same subject. There is a lot of talk about this shifting of the dimensions, that the manifestation is in a process, is shifting. And now, from how I have been talking just before, one could maybe have the feeling that I'm saying, don't waste your time with that. It's great that the manifestation is coming to a place where it can turn more harmoniously. But we don't have to somehow try to get into that story too much of this dimension, that dimension. Actually, the best we can do to support that these shifting patterns that are happening, that the changes that are happening are going in a good direction, is to continue doing what I have been talking about. Bring the attention in one way or another back home to yourself, or the essence, whatever you want to call it. Come back to that which is and relax in that. And that is prior to the different dimensions, that is beyond the different dimensions. But by doing so, you are tapping into the source of energy, into the source of power, into that lightfulness of existence. And automatically, the more you're doing that, the more you're connecting consciously with that, the more something beautiful flows through you and flows on that level into manifestation. And actually, in that way, we are contributing that things can shift towards a more harmonious, a more peaceful, a more expansive manifestation. When I say we should not get hooked into that and not get obsessed with that, then I don't mean that the two are contradictory. But what we are really looking for, to have that sense of fulfillment, that one is longing for. That yearning for being at home at last is simply going beyond all that. But as long as we are appearing in one way or another, then we are also being influenced on that level and influencing the manifestation. But we don't have to now get into that thing and how can I do something to help that shift from one dimension to another. Just be natural, be yourself. Like that, your life becomes lighter and lighter, and actually you are doing the best you can to help the manifestation, to help stirring it into a good and lightful and harmonious direction. This is not a contradiction. And as I have said many times, the best you can do for the world is come back home. Be yourself, be natural. Be at ease, at peace, and something will radiate and support all those who have contact with you, and in a way we are connected with everything. I wish you all well. Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om.